Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Cole. I'm an alcoholic in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for asking me to speak. Dude, there's a lot of people in here. I had no idea. I just got the text. I was like, yeah, I didn't know what this meeting was about, but I'm really grateful. Yeah, I've been speaking a lot on Zoom meetings, and like this is like my fourth one in the past week, and that's really cool because I don't go to Zoom meetings, and it's just like a whole nother experience. Yeah, I've been getting a lot. I get a lot out of sharing, especially it's really funny. I always get asked to share when I'm like feeling really bad mentally. Like when I'm doing really good, I'm like, man, I got some like spiritual fire to like share. I don't get asked to share, but when I'm like, man, I like really need something different in my life right now, it's like back to back to back. And that for me is like, I can believe it's a coincidence, but I just view it as like my higher power, like being like, okay, like let's get yourself out of your head and like into service, which is like my main thing of like never when I'm being of service can I also simultaneously feel like shit. Like it might, the second I'm done with whatever I'm doing, I might feel bad again, and it might last a couple hours, but at least for that brief period of time, I have a respite from like what's going on in between my ears. But yeah, I guess I'll just start with like what it was like, what happened and what it's like now. So I don't come from alcoholism in my family. I come from like, very suburban, middle class, like parents together, nuclear family, nothing like on the outside truly that you could be like, of course he turned out an alcoholic. That's just not part of my story. And I say that because I think that you know, I personally can relate to the feelings of anyone, no matter where they come from, like the background or anything like that, like the feelings that they have in their share about what happened in their alcoholism. I think that's the universal part. And for a long time, like when I was trying to get sober, I was able to only pick out the differences. Like that person doesn't look like me. That person didn't grow up like I did. Like why? And that's also like staying in the self pity, right? Like, well, I had like every opportunity to not turn out the way I did, and these other people didn't. So like, I don't have the right to feel bad, but that's still like being in myself and like self-centering myself because it's just thinking about me. It's me, me, me. And but yeah, I didn't grow up. I had some childhood trauma, but like who doesn't? For a long time, I blamed like that trauma was like, of course, like if anyone knew what happened, like anyone felt this way, they wouldn't say anything about my drug and alcohol use. Like that, and that's such a ridiculous way to think, right? Because there's plenty of people that have stuff like that happen to them and they don't turn out this way. There's plenty of people who don't have that stuff happen, right? And they do turn out this way. Um, yeah, and I grew up, I'm in suburban Colorado. I like don't really remember my first time drinking or using drugs. I do remember that like ever since I was a little kid, like very, very small child, that I would do anything to get out of my head, whether it was like video games, whether it was like reading. I like the Harry Potter books, like I'm part of that generation where I was just like solely focused on one thing, anything to like get myself out of the world in my head. Um, I also know that like the substances didn't turn me into an alcoholic because like, especially the time and place I grew up in, there were plenty of kids in my high school, in my social group who like drank alcohol and did oxys and did all the same stuff. And sometimes even took it farther than I did at the time. And now they're lawyers and they don't do anything else. Like it wasn't the substances. They were able to like have this thing like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then I truly believe that the difference between me and them is they just like had a fun experience with the substance. I ingest a substance and it feels like the piece of me that's missing is there. And so that's why it can be like it doesn't matter how much or how often you use. It's about what happens when you do, and like what that feeling, what that substance fulfills in you that's not already there. So like 13, 14, drinking, smoking weed, took about 18 months from like the first time I did that to be like very addicted to OxyContin. Like that, it was a very fast progressing disease for me. So I don't have any like doubts in my mind that it's a progressive disease. That always made sense to me. I also always I never had any trouble with the first step, right? Because it's really hard to be addicted to a substance like that, and not know that you are like an alcoholic. It's reminded of you every morning when you wake up. I never had any doubts about that. So I went to treatment for the first time. My first introduction to AA was at 16 years old. And there was stuff that spoke to me in the beginning of the first time that I was introduced to the program. But what took me out every time, and this is another part of my story, is I always needed someone to like me. Like I needed approval from my peers. And I was able to get that approval through like people I met in the program, but I always gravitated towards the people who were like doing bad shit. Like they're trying to get away with something, trying to like, other young kids that like were trying to like get one over on people. And I was always gravitating towards those people. And so I like there's of course a lot of like crazy. I'm 26 now, so I got sober March 1st, 2021. So between 2012 and 2021, of course there's a lot of like crazy things that happen, but that it really doesn't matter. Like we all know what it's like out there. I'm not going to be like telling you guys anything that you don't already know or haven't experienced. But I will say like it was truly like a cycle of just like the same day over and over, interrupted by like stays at inpatient for 30 days. It was about 10 years of that. And I would be able to, go to treatment, be like, okay, I'm gonna put down alcohol and pills, and I'm only gonna smoke weed. And I'd be able to like pull my life together a little bit for a little while, work a little bit, like get in a relationship with one girl or another, and kind of white knuckle my way through like my mental health problems and my substance abuse problems. I was never able to fully commit to sobriety. I was never able to surrender to anything. Like I was white knuckling control over every single aspect of my life. And I think that that's really interesting. And I think this is something that you might be able to relate to, is it's so easy to, if you have like control issues, which I think all alcoholics do, it's so easy to try and assert that control over every single aspect in your life except for yourself, which is the one thing, like you can't look inside yourself, which is the only thing you can actually control, like your own actions and the way you treat other people. The only thing you'll be able to, it's the one thing I never even attempted to control. And I truly believe that it's because it's way easier to focus externally on things that I know I would never be able to fix. Because if I focus on things that I might be able to change, I would be challenged. I would have to put work into my life, and I wasn't able to do that. So it's easier to focus on big picture stuff that I knew would never change. What happened to get myself sober this time, like truly commit to the program, is so I was doing that cycle of like, I was in a relationship with this girl. I was not doing opiates. I was drinking a lot, and my mental health was like, I was at a point where I had lost a job at the beginning of COVID, couldn't leave my apartment. I like developed severe agoraphobia, like, and just was like Instacart and booze, and that was it. She left, obviously, and I kind of fell right back into it, and the things that had changed is now there's fentanyl, and that really, I think, obviously will bring you to your knees if it doesn't kill you. It's a curse, and obviously it's a curse, but it's also a blessing in my mind, because it really accelerated the nature of this disease very, very fast. My last drink or drug was an overdose on February 28th, 2021. So I woke up the next day in the hospital on my sobriety date, March 1st. And even then I wasn't able, I had, collapsed lungs, broken teeth. Um, and I wasn't, even at that point, I was not able to or wasn't willing to surrender to the fact that like my life is completely unmanageable. But I got into treatment for one last time. I did have that little window of like, there's nothing, I'm just gonna, that was the first time I took direction, is like the people at the hospital said, do this. And I was like, whatever, I'll do it. That was the only first time in my life I've like actually taken direction. And then what changed for me in the program, and what got me actually working the program, is very superficial. It comes back to like the need of being liked. I saw cool people around me in LA in the program. I had like 2 weeks. I was like, these people are cool. I want them to like me. And they just so happened to be people who worked really good programs. So in my head, I'm like, okay, in order for them to like me, I have to do what they're doing, which has been the story my whole life. But the only thing that changed this time was they were seeking conscious contact with a higher power, and they were taking other alcoholics through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll do it. And that's why I truly believe that you don't have, it doesn't matter your motivations for working this program, like at all. All you have to do is do it. Like it was a very superficial, I just wanted to be like the cool guy with like face tattoos and an R8. That's all I wanted. And I just started doing what he was doing. I like was just working the program. And slowly but surely, as I went through the steps, I started to have that spiritual experience. I never was really an atheist. I don't think I'm smart enough for atheism. Like I just never really questioned it. I was like, yeah, there's God, whatever, cool. Like I was raised Jewish household. There's like people talk about God. Yeah, it's God. I don't care. So I did start to like look at that experience. And as I got to my steps, I noticed that like when I would do certain things, and it's always been this one throughout my life, when I was in certain environments, the quiet and peace that I could feel from just like noticing nature or noticing the way that people interacted in a loving way, the connection, I felt this peace inside me, and I felt like the nearness of something. And that's what I call my higher power. That's how I connect to it. That's how I choose to make my decisions before I make a big decision. Before I make any decision, is I just try and tap into that. It's not always perfect, but that's what I do, and it works. And I truly believe that without that connection, I would not be here. I think a lot of this really speaks to me, the fact that like me sober without working a program causes way more harm than me loaded. Like I'm more miserable. Like it's just, there's no point. So I have to do this. I get through. I start really noticing major shifts in my the way that I view the world when I get to my ninth step. I start making these amends for all the harms that I've caused. And I start to notice that my values change, right? Like I start to feel like, okay, like the only thing I can take pride on is the way that I treat other people. Like that's the only thing I can control. And the only good that I'm going to be remembered for when I'm gone is how I've made other people feel. In this program, like we're going to meet a lot of people that pass away. We're going to love a lot of people that pass away. And what I notice is when someone's gone, like they will be remembered by the impact they had on the people around them in life. So the way I think is like, okay, when I'm gone, and it's a selfish way to think, I don't care. It doesn't, like, altruism doesn't exist. Like as long as you're doing the right thing, you're doing good things, it doesn't matter your selfish motivations. Like I want to be viewed as a good person. It makes me feel good to be of service. That's it. It's selfish, but I do it and it helps other people. It makes me feel good, it makes them feel good. It's a win-win. I noticed that like I mentioned in the beginning, I deal with a lot of mental health issues. Like I've always had, like my earliest memories have been like crippling depression and anxiety. And I still deal with that. I have about 13 months sober. I recently got back on like an antidepressant because I was like, okay, I'm gonna hardline it. I'm like, all I need is God, man. I just need to meditate. I just need to, and it turns out I was like, okay, maybe I need like something else, because there might be a little bit like wires crossed. Um, so it's not perfect. Like life truly isn't going to be like amazing all the time. It's insanely better than when I was a year ago, but like I'm still the same dude. Like at the end of the day, I'm still the same dude. There was a reason why I got loaded for all those years. And it's because at the end of the day, if I'm just sitting in my will, if I'm sitting in my head, I'm very, very uncomfortable. Um, and so what I do in my daily practice is, um, thank you. What I do in my daily practice is as soon as I wake up in the morning, I make my bed, I send a gratitude list to however many people, and I say a quick prayer like, hey, God, just like help me out today. That's it. And how I start, the reason I start my days like that is like, if I start my day in my head and like not thinking about like other people or other things outside of myself, I'm not going to have a good day. Like I'm my own worst enemy. I have a group of people. The fellowship aspect of this program is so important to me. Like truly, like for 10 years, I didn't have a single friend that like didn't want something from me. Right. And now my biggest problem, like socially, is like I don't have enough time for the people who I like genuinely care about. And it's like the biggest blessing that I've like ever experienced. And I don't deserve it. Like there are better men, way better men than me that aren't here anymore. And that's why I'm like in a just world, I would not be alive. And that's why I truly think that like my higher power like has given, that's what I believe grace is. Like I've been given the grace to live on this borrowed time. And if I don't choose to do right by that grace, like that is like a shame of the highest order. And that's what keeps me going, and making the next right indicated action. Because like at the end of the day, like I spent a lot of time being selfish and an asshole, and I get to still be here and try to change that. And maybe I'll pay for that karma in whatever life is after this. But right now in this life, like I get a chance to do good shit and to help other people and like just to be nice, be like a nice dude. Like when someone thinks of my name, you're like, oh, that guy's cool. He's nice. Like that's truly all it takes. You don't have to be like the Dalai Lama. You don't have to be this like guru. You just have to like when people like the goal I think in my head is like when people think of you, just be like maybe give them something to think about of the time that you like did a solid for them. Like that's really all being of service is. You don't have to give people your money. You don't have to like let them sleep on your couch. It's very simple stuff. That's what affects people around you. I don't know. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be able to share this with you guys. This is really cool that there's so many people here. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you for asking me. Thank you.